going on, everybody? It's Devin Thomas back with another episode of Unscripted. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to fucking Unscripted. It's been a minute. I feel like it's been probably a little over a week since we last spoke, and lots happened, to be honest. Actually, things have been kind of fucking rocking and rolling around here. Um, just general update, been fucking focusing on health, focusing on wellness, and just trying to feel good. I was really sick. I guess not really sick, but it was like the common cold. Stevie or Christine got diagnosed, and they found out that whatever, it was a common cold, and so fucking I got it, and like, dude, it took me down bad. But like, it's funny. I like went out, I did a bunch of shit this past week, and then this last like fucking, I would just say the last like 48 hours, like, dude, it like came back, and it's just like fucking A. Like I took medicine today too, and it's annoying. I just don't want to go to like a doctor's on duty or some shit too to get antibiotics, because usually they don't give it to you and they're like, you should just do this. And then I felt like it was already over. It's like, it's like I'm fucking taking a step back on this little fucking cold. But anyways, I still kind of feel shitty, like physically more so than mentally or like spiritually or any of that. But it's a bummer. No one wants to be fucking sick. So been, enjoying the honeymoon period here at the cabin. I feel like it's not, like I said, it's not like coming to an end. There's still good times to come, but like, it's just back to work. I feel like now I have my like shit set up. I have a pretty good spot to do the pod and like fucking make shit happen with that. And also like film stuff. I've been really dialing back into film stuff. Here's the deal. I was just thinking about it before I started the pod. I was like, fuck, like what was it that got you kind of like off the, routine and path? I'm like, well, of course, moving sucked. And that was like an extremely energy sucking, but also like, there's more to it, dude. It's a spiritual thing. You're letting go of your old home. It's a fucking mental thing. You're like trying to like do like a fucking business deal. For us, at least we were more involved because, of our real estate background. And then like, it's just fucking, it was a lot. It was a lot. And now that it's all like simmered down, I've been like, okay, what do I really want to do? Everything's good right now. I feel like I'm in a stable place, like financially and like with everything going on. So like, I'm not tripping about that. And I started thinking like, well, what do I want to do? Like one thing I want to do is I just want to get back into like, like health mode, like walk heavily. Like that was one thing I did a lot during the move. And then since I moved here last 30 days, I'm like, God, like my steps are down. I was looking at I have like a pedometer app, and you should get it. I don't even know if it's called anything other than pedometer. And your iPhone tracks steps, but like the iPhone cheats you on steps. If you really want to fucking count your steps, get this pedometer app. I'll fucking find a link and maybe put it in the info or whatever, the body description. But dude, like I just like looked at it and like, cause you can see it, it looks like, also I set my like daily limit higher, like, 15K. I'm like, if it doesn't hit that, it doesn't turn green. I was like looking at it, I'm like, God, it looks kind of depressing. It looks like a bad cell phone signal. And anyways, I was like, fuck, I really want to get back on the grind of walking. Cause walking was like, that was my exercise. And like, I was going other places too and doing like a lot of treadmill cardio. And like, I was like, like it was never the same. It was good. Like you sweat balls and you fucking definitely feel like you get like a high afterwards, but in my opinion, makes you a little hungrier. And then also you're just tired like every fucking day. Like is that a bad thing though? Like by 6 or 7 o'clock, you're like, I think I'm ready to like shower and go to bed. Probably not, because, sleep is like the other healthiest thing. But anyways, I digress. Been thinking a lot more about health, just fucking, trying to get back in the, best shape of my life again. I was super on the health grind too. I remember I just like fucking cut hard. And then like, I think this last year was just a lot of just like, maybe the past 6 months, honestly, it was just the move. The move was stressful. And like, now, like, I'm not going to talk about the move anymore. I've talked about it, but like hindsight, thinking about it, I'm like, all right, like, I think it was just a big distraction, but anyways, health's been on the top of the fucking priority list. I've been writing a script. I'll get into that in a second. Actually, I'll talk about it a little bit. So I don't want to give away what the script's about, but like, I've written so many ideas. If you've been watching the show or listening at all, I fucking have pitched like 101 ideas. It's all good. I think that's just like the right writer's mindset and like also just like the creator mindset. But like, I think I finally have an idea, because like even living here, I just like been watching a lot of serial killer shit. And without giving anything away, I was like, God, like, might just throw our hat in that arena and see what happens. And like this script, I finished it. It's the first draft. I'm going to go back and fucking really add more. Like, I think it just needs a little bit more like personality rather than function. This script was 100% function. Like I wrote it and I'm like, here's the fucking story. And I wrote it probably in 4 or 5 days of like just banging out the fucking narrative. And then like the characters, they have like a depth, but like I know that if I go back and I do a pass or two, one, your first draft, I hear a lot of people say this, it's never your best draft. I mean, sometimes you fucking are an anomaly, you get a good one. But like, dude, realistically, it's I've said this and I've used this example, and if you've listened, you've heard, but like for anyone who hasn't heard it, writing a script is like having a marble fucking block, and you want to chisel out a statue, and every rewrite, every change, a little chisel, chisel, and you just keep getting it down till you have this fucking beautiful marble statue, which is the final script. And like, not to quote The Social Network, but isn't like fashion's never finished? Like the work is never finished with art. I heard somebody else say like good art doesn't get finished, it gets abandoned. Don't remember who said it, but it's the same thing with the script. Like, dude, at some point you gotta like make this like either literal or just bullshit fucking deadline in your mind where like it's done. Like we gotta start fucking making it, or like we'll revisit it. If we're not gonna make it now, we'll revisit it in the future. So for me, I told Stevie even going into writing the script, I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna write it, and I think like I'm gonna revise it. I'm gonna chisel away, right? But I'm not gonna like this is a do idea, like a go idea. We could go out and make this idea. We don't need a lot of people. Not saying I'm not gonna have people involved in like the film, but I mean like to actually make it. It's not like a production where it's like, hey, like I need fucking PAs and I need people on set to help me facilitate the idea. It's like, no, I think like with a pretty like shoestring crew, we can go out and make this film. And make a good one. And I'm excited to share it with you guys. Like I said, I'm not trying to build up the mystery, but like I think you'll see sooner than you think, to be honest. And also, like, I haven't been making a movie while I made the pod, other than the short films, which I always talk about on here. But like, I'm excited to actually like be able to come in every week and be like, hey, like, here's what I did. This is what we did on set. And like, for me, it's also a way to like document and kind of like journal the journey of making a movie, which I think will be unique. And like, once again, everything in hindsight, I always think like, oh, in the future, like in 10 years, I can be like, oh, that's what my mindset was like when I was working on that film or doing this or doing that. So yeah, it'll be really good. Anyways, script done. Very happy about that. Very proud of the script. And the concept. And it was funny. We went to a wedding. I'll get into the wedding in a second, but we went to one of my cousin's weddings and we kind of pitched the idea to a few people. And, I was like, every person was like, that's a great fucking idea. And I was like, great. Like, not saying other ideas haven't been as received, but like if I was pitching Slugger to someone at a wedding, they'd be like, okay, I get it. So it's like a Friday the 13th-esque. It's more of a movie like you see and you either like it or you don't. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. How do you really describe that movie to somebody? So people kind of go out in the countryside to visit a house and then they walk around, they start getting picked off. It doesn't sound riveting, but when you watch it, you're like, fuck, there's something about it. It's got that X factor per se, right? And I think this idea was like, it's not even like maybe if it was made for like 10 or 20 million dollars, people would be like, oh, this is such a Hollywood idea. But like, I always think this, like the idea is a great idea, the concept. And I'm not trying to tease you guys without dropping the idea, but like what I'm saying is that like sometimes the ingenuity of the idea is the best thing versus like all the spectacle or like how well it was made. Like, I've been reflecting on the movie Obsession lately, and I really loved Obsession. I love Curry Barker. I think what he's doing is really interesting, and I think he's a cool guy. But the movie was so conventional in terms of production and like by the numbers. Stevie and I joke it almost looks like a Sony test shoot, like YouTube video, which is no hate to that aesthetic. It is just so polished. It's so clean. It looks like he got like the best YouTube videographers, cinematographers rather, and had them team up and go make this like super movie. And like it is a way to do it, but there is also something about like this more like low key indie lo-fi vibe that like does attract me. And I'm not saying I'm gonna make the movie intentionally like low quality, but like there is a charm that comes with a certain type of like production. And like I've also been thinking a lot about this, not to just keep like tangenting away, but like maybe it's more fun to kind of experiment with the camera and be like, hey, we're gonna try this versus that. Oh, we're gonna shoot on this medium versus that medium. It's just food for thought. And I think that's something like I'm trying to have a little bit more fun with the filmmaking in terms of like I don't want to be so locked into like Peninsula Nights. We're so locked into like the style and aesthetic. And like I think also when it comes down to production, you get a little bit tighter about that because you're like, hey, I need to know what I'm doing on the day of. And we certainly did, but like I think it's just like, okay, like I know I can get this done with however I'm gonna shoot it. I'm not gonna like fret about how I'm gonna do it. I got the tool. I'm gonna go out and film it. I trust myself. I trust the aesthetic that I want to bring will be translated through my actual like, work. And I guess I'm also in a little bit more of a unique scenario because I shoot the movie myself. And I understand a lot of people go out and they crew up and they're like, hey, this is my DP and this is that. And maybe I'll do that. I'm open to that. But like I also understand, I think like maybe like if I was hiring somebody who had more experience, it wouldn't be such a problem. But I'm usually like not just budgetary restrictions, but also like scheduling because we have like a pretty like spontaneous schedule when we shoot a movie. It's easier for me to DP it and be that guy. And I love my results anyways. But yeah, I think if I trusted somebody more than I trusted myself, which might sound a little arrogant because like there's a lot of talented people out there, but like if I knew for beyond the shadow of a doubt, like this guy and his camera team, like they fucking get it, they understand me, then that would make me comfortable. I guess it's just also like the time investment of making a film. You got to worry about making things right or like how you want it. And like if you know what you want, then I think as a director, particularly being behind the camera, quite literally operating or doing it might be the best way to film, at least for me. And like, I enjoy it. I actually like just love to film, like, outside of actually directing, like just shooting test footage, getting to use the camera, getting to edit in the program is like the greatest joy for a filmmaker. You never know. You're gonna be like, oh, look at that beautiful shot I got, or this or that. But anyways, yeah, horror's been on the mind. I've definitely been more dialed into that genre lately. And I've been feeling inspired. Also something I think Stevie and I talked about it, and I may have mentioned it last week, but like once again, like kind of just want to make something I want to make. I want to make a movie that I want to see. And like I love making romance movies for the record. Like Peninsula Nights, I think it was just like a dabble in what I could do in that genre. I've written a lot of scripts. Like during the Peninsula Nights era, I just like shit out like all these indie kind of drama movies that I feel like, in my opinion, the reason I like to make them is because I love to work with actors, and these movies showcase like true acting talent because they're so simple at the core of the story, but the emotional intensity and emotional intelligence someone needs to bring to those scenes, maybe not so much intensity, but like I always say this, like a lot of my scripts are in what's not said, like left unsaid, and the human's reaction to that, like especially during emotional conversations. And I feel like I wrote a lot of scripts like that where the actor could really bring that because like subtlety and also just like body language is so much like, how do I say this? That, in my opinion, is better than like we watch a lot of low budget movies too. And a lot of people are like, oh, like acting with their face, like I can't fucking believe this right now. And it's like, it's fine. But in my opinion, that is not how like a lot of people want to act, but they want to act like they're acting. Like they have to go into this performative mode. And it's like, God, like the best advice I ever got for acting was just kind of do nothing. I got it from Christine. And she told me, like, hey, like a lot of people say, just don't do anything. Try and completely stay yourself. Don't let the camera make you feel weird. Don't let the camera throw you off and make you feel like you need to be this other person. And I was just like, okay. And I've stuck by that advice. And I swear, like, that is the best acting advice you can start. Like, even just for like a general basis, don't try and be performative. Just simply perform. Like just be in the moment, try and be genuine, try and give your truth, sell the truth. And I think that's what people like. But that being said, that is like those type of movies are very specific and they're different. And even here I've gotten some ideas for like a movie like that. But look, the thing I love about filmmaking right now is I can do it at any time with anybody, and kind of on my own budget. So I don't have to worry about like, well, if we don't make it now, we'll never make it. It's like, not really. Like, I'm gonna make this horror movie because I'm very passionate about it and I actually really love the idea. But I can revisit these ideas that I've had that are like, I like to use the term mumblecore-esque, but I'd even just say like indie drama, very 2000s and 2010s driven. Those movies have this like wholesome, sometimes erotic and edgy vibe, but also this like, wholesome Americana. I wouldn't call it fulfillment. Like this is an emotional payoff that makes you feel very good. They're kind of like a life movie, slice of life. And I don't know, I've always been attracted to that genre. There's something very comforting about those films as well. I'm obviously a large fan of the mumblecore, genre, but there's movies that even graduated from that mumblecore-esque like era into more mature indie-driven dramas. And like, I think I'll get back to it. And I mean, like, look, earlier this year I was talking like Cork is the go movie, and you know what? The year's kind of coming to the end, and like I'm starting to actually see the cycle of like these wineries and these ventures, like what time of the year would be best to shoot that movie. I'm like, maybe next year we just start it around whatever time, and like never say never, I guess, on those movies. I will revisit all the scripts that I've written, if not try and like get them made in other capacities. But horror right now feels like not just the biggest ROI, maybe ROT, return on time, and that's not just because it's like we need a vehicle to get out there, but it's also like I watch so many low budget horror films, and I know that the bar isn't necessarily lower for a horror film, but horror fans are very forgiving in terms of production, in my opinion. And sometimes it's part of the campiness in the genre that allows people to actually get invested in these movies without being like, a lot of people are scared of horror movies. And I don't personally love the like try to scare you for the sake of fucking like a pop out scary or like yeah, it's fine. I like those movies too, but like I always like the more psychological or slasher type horror. And I think I've watched some pretty budget movies like that. Even this Terrifier guy, the Damien Leone, it's just like, he started very, very budget. And it's like, dude, like, people love it. And like, I like it. So it's like, I've tried to have that mentality. Like, fans are going to want to see the story because I think the story that we've put together is very good. But also, like, I don't think production is like front and center for them. And I get it. If you're not a filmmaker and you're an audience member, maybe you can message me and tell me like your opinion on this too. But like that's just how I feel from the filmmaking perspective. I'll also add to that, I'll echo it with this. When I went to film school, the red digital cinema camera was just coming out, and the box camera was just coming out, the Blackmagic 4K cinema production camera, the pocket cinema camera, all these fucking cinema cameras. It was the new word, right? And I feel like people thought in that time that you needed that shit to actually make a movie, that you needed that shit to actually be part of the players in the game. And it was such emerging technology. And like, I've read this a lot about people that go to film school, including myself. You get film school blood where you're like, well, it has to be done the way we were taught. Oh, it's not right or real if we don't do it that way. And it's like, I always was like more of the outlier that was kind of like, well, I'm going to fucking make shit either way. I was shooting music videos at school. I never really owned a lot of gear back then. It was a tough time, I think, for like, people to get entry level gear at that point in time because it was so prohibitively expensive. So sometimes I'd borrow from the school. I had my friend Dominic. He had the Blackmagic Cinema 4K production camera. God, it's a fucking mouthful. And we used it to film a lot of music videos for a lot of people we know. And then also just some people were cool and let me borrow shit. So like, I also bought the Blackmagic Pocket now that I think about it. So I was filming where I could and always trying to create. So I never got suppressed by this idea that you have to have it. But I remember like it really was after we made Peninsula Nights. I think Stevie and I were like, dude, like we could have shot it on anything. It's the story, it's the acting, it's the people. I love the medium I shot it on, but like it was limiting, but it was also a kind of an insurance policy because the quality was so like with the red digital cinema camera systems, not to get too nerdy, you can really like do a lot of post-production manipulation to the image if you need to. Like you can change ISOs, you can change temperature all natively. So you're not just like dragging temperature knobs inside the fucking software. You're actually doing it to the raw footage, which is red raw code. That being said, you don't yeah, I won't say you don't need it because if you're shooting like Netflix or shooting fucking Jurassic World, maybe you're like, hey, like we want the shot to look more like nighttime. Let's change the temperatures and fuck around with it. But for what we did, like rarely did we actually go into the raw footage and actually manipulate it. We did most of the manipulation through like, I'd say we cut it in Final Cut Pro. So like Stevie was really on the color and most of that color fucking was done in the program. Like we didn't go to the raw footage. I actually remember with Final Cut Pro, maybe it was more of a critique of Final Cut Pro, but we were not able to go back into the raw footage because something with like the red third party plugin didn't work with the software. And it was just like, all right, well, fuck it. We're not going to even worry about that. Also, like, dude, when we were editing Peninsula Nights, like, we just spent all of our fucking money on making this movie. We we fucking like, dude, straight up, like, I don't care if we lose the house or things go sideways. We were just like, let's just fucking make this movie. And I remember, like, we figured things out, but like, dude, at the time, we were fully committed and like nothing was going to stop us from editing this movie, not even this little fucking third party plugin. We were like, fuck it. And every dollar we had just went into more editing shit. I remember we dropped like $4,000 on this fucking Mac studio just because laptops were giving out. They were fucking giving out. It was like they needed CPR. They needed to be on a stretcher on their way down to the fucking, hospital. And we were like, dude, like, there's just no way we can finish this movie without buying this computer. So, I mean, I went out and opened up a fucking credit card and I was like, fuck it. Give me this Mac. Got the most specced out fucking 64 gigs of RAM. This thing it's a monster, and that's what I'm going to edit the next movie on too. But anyways, I digress. Like, look, dude, my perspective on production's changed. My perspective even on writing. Like, I think like, I understand what the story needs to be. I actually just think like the writing, it's like, for me, it's just a little bit easier. Now, that's really the difference is like, I really understand like after making a movie too, you understand like what really gets filmed, what a script really is. There's so much you don't see that your mind kind of makes up for you. And like, that is a good perspective to have when also going into like writing a script and then actually being the one making it myself. It's going to be a lot easier to translate that and be like, okay, like, well, now I'm thinking like how I'm filming it. I'm also thinking, because I'm an editor too, how I'm editing it. And honestly, like, this ecosystem that's a little bit more contained for film production, I really think is the future of film production. I think if creators can learn to do the whole pipeline, A to fucking B of making their film, then like you really like, and it's not to say like you don't need a crew. I'm not trying to make it sound like crews are bad or anything like that, but it's just like you don't need to limit yourself to actually going out and creating. And that's kind of been my message is like, look, like I wanted so desperately to make a movie, but I felt like it was so impossible to summit that mountain. That was the K2, that was Everest. But maybe it's not if you actually fucking like really invest the time in like, I hate to say it too, like not to toot my own horn or Stevie's, but like we have sacrificed so much time just to learn the actual game of filmmaking. Like there's a lot of other shit you can do in life than sit around playing with fucking cameras and talking about how you're gonna do it. And like I get it. But I mean, dude, if you really want it to happen, like you need to focus like a good amount of your time on this. Everything else you're doing should be like facilitating the film dream. If that's what you're really about. For us, like I really love filmmaking. I really want to be able to do it. And look, like I also like I've had like come to terms moments. I'm like, maybe we'll be like one of these fucking goats, or maybe we'll just be like another one making films. But I think like, you can look at a guy like Sean Baker. He's made so many movies over the last 20 years. He never stopped making them. And he had success, but not everyone was probably a financial windfall. And not everyone was like a mega movie that just had him out there. But like, look at him now. He's a fucking multi-Oscar winner. He's going on to make more movies still. And that's kind of like how I look at it. I'm like, like statues and shit aside, like I just want to keep making movies. And if people enjoy them, then even better. I love doing it. So I digress. That's kind of the I guess film talk for the day. I'll get into this wedding for a little bit because I had such a great time. My cousin Angelina got married out at the family ranch, and like, man, this was such an understated but like classy wedding. Like, understated maybe is not the right word. It was like minimal. They had this beautiful outdoor, like, first of all, I'll give you a description. Like, this property is way off into the fucking like Gavilan Mountain Range, and it's like a very private, very isolated property. And it's a long drive in. The road like ends. It says like dead end, and then you just keep driving. And it's kind of a fake out. And then you finally get to the fucking gate. They had them open. I've been to this ranch many times over the years, but we get out there and like you pull in, and it's like, we got there like 5 minutes before showtime, and they still gave it another 20 after we got there. But like when we got there, people were walking in to go sit at like they had like chairs for the pews, and then like this nice like wood, what do you call it, chapel or whatever. And anyways, parked, got out, walked up, saw a few family members already, and the vibe was good. It was a perfect weather, not too fucking hot. Sun was shining. And then these trees, like the way they put like, I think I posted a picture on Insta, but like the way they had like the fucking chapel with the chairs and then the trees, the placement was incredible. And like, it's like this beautiful late summer kind of vibe going on with this like breeze and the wind. And like, it was just, everything was very chill. It was like, I've been to a lot of weddings where like, I actually prefer going to the super produced wedding where it's like at the big fucking, church, and like each wedding's great. I can't say anything bad, but like sometimes you're in like the nicest fucking clothes you've ever worn. You're sitting there and you're sweating and you're just like, I don't want to cough. I'm in this big church. And it's just sometimes it's like a little uncomfortable, because you can't really leave either. Like, kind of like, I'm fucking stuck in this church and there's like 250 or 300 people here. Like, I'm talking the big bad boy wedding. And then there's like the more low key wedding where it's like, I've gone to a few more low key weddings lately. And honestly, like they are a great time. It feels almost like a big family reunion, almost like a barbecue or something. And like, that's kind of how this felt. So anyways, we're sitting there, minimal fucking beautiful setup. They start playing the music. It's just like, they're playing all these like piano covers too of these great fucking like, mainstream songs. And like, when you hear them in the wind and the fucking vibe is like that, it just sounds good, and you kind of already know the song. I think they play like Hotline Bling on fucking like piano, but like even that, it sounded like, I don't know, fucking so classy and magical, which is funny. But anyways, the fucking minister gets up there. They have the procession. Everyone walks in. I see my uncle with his daughter. And then like, the show starts, and like the minister was smart. Same with the photographer. Like they work together, but the minister's like, hey, like, I know this is unusual, but if you want to take a picture of him right now, everyone get your phone out, snap one. And I was like, that's actually like smart. And then he said, hey, by the way, turn around. The photographer's up here on a ladder. He's going to get a photo of everyone right now. I was like, like, I think 10 or 20 years ago, people might be a little bit more like, well, this isn't very classy. This isn't very polite. And now people are kind of like, we fucking get it. Like, what's better? Having them like reach out in the aisle and snap a shot in the middle of the fucking like vows, or like, let's just get this out of the way and then we can like focus on the event. And like, especially in like, I've talked a lot about this. We're living in the like technology addiction phase of fucking social media and phones. Like even myself, I'm like, I'm burnt out. Like, I gotta fucking get away from this motherfucker. It's like digital heroin. It just wants you to fucking use it all the time. Anyways, I digress. I think the fact that they did that because they know how fucking much people want to be on their phones and shit was very smart and like a prudent decision on their behalf because it just really set the tone for like, hey, like, let's just listen. And you know what? Their actual ceremony was probably like 20 minutes, the perfect amount of time. They did not try and beat a dead horse with like, also, let me say this. This was, I believe, more of a Christian driven wedding versus like a Catholic. And like a Catholic wedding is very like sacramental. Like it's a long show versus this, which was actually like, it was nice. It was very classy, very respectable. Honestly, just a good time. I had a fucking phenomenal time actually just at the ceremony itself because it was well done and it was lighthearted and like, there was fucking sparks were flying. Romance was in the air. Um, and congratulations to Angelina and Philip. I forgot to mention his name as well, but welcome to the family. Uh, anyways, fucking ceremony ends. We walk over to like, actually, I ended up catching up with my cousin Drew. She just moved to Hollywood, so I think it's pretty cool. Gonna connect with her down there as well. But anyways, we walked over to the fucking bar. It was with my uncle Johnny. I saw everybody, every fucking buddy, I was cracking beers with Johnny and Stevie. Saw my cousin Blake. Also, like these family events, like, look, like I'm not a huge drinker myself on the regular, but dude, these things are like, if I was like, when people put like on occasion on like a fucking, their profiles on occasion, this is the occasion. It's like, all right, well, this is like almost like ceremonial to some extent. Like these parties wouldn't be the same. Like I've been doing without drinking, but like that's kind of like, part of the party. It's like we're gonna have a nice little fucking, drink at this thing. And like they had Michelob Ultra, which I'm glad to see it's just like emerged as like one of the more popular beers right now. But dude, yeah, toss back ultras, had a good old fucking time with the family. The actual fucking, what do you call it, reception was great too. Big open bar, as usual. Big white tent for like the actual eating. I'm trying to think of what happened. We went over there, chilled, it was just a lot of socializing, and then they started doing. Oh, so it was funny. They had like a chips and salsa bar, and I was like, "This is fucking genius!" Like you can make your own little like, almost like one of those little nacho containers they give you at a ball game. You just throw some chips in there, and you put some salsa in, right? Hit that shit. And then I kind of didn't put it together, but like when the actual like dinner started, they started like serving shit. It was Mexican food, which I actually thought was genius as well. I was like, okay, like I'm getting the correlation here. We got the fucking chips and salsa. We got the Mexicano. Fucking incredible food. I don't know who they get for this shit, but like, dude, it is so good every time. It was like tacos. It was kind of cool. It was like cheese enchiladas, tacos, beans, rice, whatever. You can get a little like Mexican chopped salad, tons of salsa selection, tons of guac. It was smart as fuck, honestly. And then we heard the speeches. Speeches were great. A lot more drinking. And then towards the end, instead of having cake, they just had like a fucking like sweets bar. There was like fucking jars full of peanut M&Ms. They had fucking cookies of all kinds. Like honestly, like it sounds. They had a churro guy with a little like chocolate dip. It was insane, honestly. Like for a wedding, I guess. It's just like I haven't been to a wedding that serves like food like that. Like sometimes I see like the sushi bar and then there's like this or that. And then even as people were fucking leaving, they're serving quesadillas. I was like, what is this? Like even like here's something to take it home with you, something to send you off with. But actually the churro guy was pretty chill. He ended up hooking Christine and my dad up with like 2 fat bags because he was just making them. And then like when they were like done, he was just like, fuck it. Here's a bag here. Like I'm gonna throw the shit out anyways, basically is what he told us. So but the wedding was great. Once again, congratulations to Angelina and Philip. And thank you so much for having us. We had a great time. Yeah. Also, on the ride home, I forgot to add this. We ended up I was fucking pretty hammered, so was Stevie, but we ended up stopping at Angelina's in Toro and grabbing a pizza. And look, their pizza's good. I didn't love the cheese they did last time. So this time I was like, hey, fucking, I was like drunk on the phone. I'm like, yeah, can I get a pizza? And I ordered it with no cheese. But like, thank God I got that pizza because like, look, I only drank beer. I never went to liquor because I was like, dude, like I'm not trying to like fucking poison myself here. I needed that shit to soak it up, quite frankly, and it did. It soaked it up, and then like I kind of sobered up around like 10. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna walk. So I walked around the neighborhood for a bit and then hit the hay. But honestly, it was kind of nice. Like the next day, no hangover, kind of like a great reset. I was like, oh, it kind of like, it was kind of good. I hadn't drank in a minute, probably since the rodeo. So anyways, I digress. And the Sunday was a long fucking day because it was. Had to go look at a property, do some other shit. What else did we do? Kind of just hydrated and chilled. Been just trying to fucking like stay like ridiculously hydrated. It sucks. You gotta pee like 10 times a fucking day. But yeah, hot tub, chilled, And what's today? Today's Monday. So yeah, I've been out and about today. I went and got like a car wash. I did all the basic shit today. Returned a shirt that I bought for the wedding. Had to go to Ross, fucking Ross's. It's cheap, but fucking A, man. They always have a line. That's what I've noticed. It's like every time you fucking go there, you're like waiting, even for a return. I was like, damn, like maybe do a return lane. Then I did some other shit, little errands. But yeah, wedding was good. To cap that, the wedding was good. The rest of the weekend was good. And today's a beautiful day as well. So, anyways, being in the spirit of watching horror movies, I actually watched a lot of movies. I'm not going to talk about all of them because some of them I watched and I've talked about on the pod before. We watched the first two Hostel movies. Fucking incredible, as always. They're like the quintessential European horror films, not necessarily because they're European made, but like they were made in Europe. And like Eli Roth, like his claim to fame is those films. I love Cabin Fever. I love Knock Knock. I think he's kind of had some like mishaps in the last few years. Ice Cream Man, I haven't seen. I know Thanksgiving was so. I don't hate it, but like it's a little grotesque towards the end. Um, Green Inferno was hard to watch. He's made a lot of great films though. And Hostel 1 and 2, the only fucking problem I have with these movies is that he didn't make a third. And I've kind of talked about this before, but Hostel 2 was subjected to like one of the first like pirated internet leaks of a movie before it came out. And that really like it affected the financial returns. And like he's like, well, fuck me. So I don't know if I would go back to make another one because like demand might not be there. And also like just maybe it scared him away from the franchise. He's like kind of like, fuck the fans for doing that to me. Because obviously if somebody wanted that movie, they had to have been interested in the story. But anyways, I digress. The Hostel movies are great. It was good revisiting them. They hold up. They're some of the most premium horror movies out there. So if you're looking for like some horror to watch because spooky season's starting, I keep seeing Augtober, Aug-tober. I've never heard that. I think it's funny. It kind of reminds me, my dad has like a Midwestern accent and he says like Aug, like even for October, and I just the G in there. But October started for us for sure. We've been banging through horror movies. I actually almost watched Coraline this morning. It's more for the vibe than just the story itself, but I digress. So watch that. One of the movies I watched this week, I wasn't going to talk about this one, but I'll talk about it because it was really good. It's The King's Speech, 2010. Director Tom Hooper, writer David Seidler, and director of photography Danny Cohen, starring Colin Firth as King George VI, Jeffrey Rush as Lionel Logue, Helena Bonham Carter as Queen Elizabeth, Guy Pearce as King Edward VIII, and Michael Gambon as King George V. What a movie. Here's the deal. Lately, we've been trying to fucking find movies, and sometimes I just tell Christine, I'm like, look, like, we actually watched this kind of because we saw this guy Colin Firth on Disclosure Day, which we all know was a fucking mess. But I told her, I was like, because she's like, who is this guy? What is this guy doing in here? I'm like, dude, like, he's like an Oscar winner, And that's the thing is sometimes, like, you see an actor, and it's been, 16 years since The King's Speech, but sometimes you need to go back and see him in their finest work. And that's why I kind of told him, like, hey, I kind of mentioned it the other day. Let's just, like, let's put on an Oscar winner and see what happens. And, like, you always kind of see why the movie was, the victor during that season. I also want to add that we watched Inception the other day, and Inception, The Social Network, and The King's Speech all came out in the same year and were all up against each other at the Oscars. And this movie won, I don't know if I have it here, but it won like best fucking picture, I think best director, best lead actor, and maybe like best cinematography. My point more so is just like, dude, the competition was so good that year. The King's Speech ended up being the winner, but like respectfully to The King's Speech, which was like phenomenal. Like the movie itself was great. Like if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's about a king with a stutter, and like he ends up getting a speech therapist who he's not a king yet, but he is like on his way to be king. Anyways, he helps him fucking like correct his speech. But like, what movies lasted longer in that group I mentioned? Was it The Social Network, which has become like a, I'd say a cultural phenomenon, maybe even cult following, perhaps one of the most influential movies of the 2010s, timeless, absolutely timeless, David Fincher's best work by far, and Aaron Sorkin's perhaps. I mean, he's written a lot of great stuff, but a movie that has like lived in the pop culture, I call it the space-time continuum, but like, just like, it's just never left. The Social Network, you could watch it today and it feels just as new, just as fucking riveting as it did the day it came out. What was the other movie I mentioned? Inception. Inception's also a film that is just, it's so timeless. The idea is so genius. It's so ahead of its time, and maybe not even ahead of its time so much as that this idea is just never going away, and Christopher Nolan's never going away. Tom Hooper is making stuff. He's not like off the fucking grid. I saw he had something new coming out, but my point more so is that what movies ended up being more important to culture. The King's Speech is a very great movie. Like I said, it's heartwarming. You love the story. It's also based on the truth. It's kind of a biopic with, some dramatization, of course. But what movie's going to make you like remember it forever? And I think like for me personally, like I put Social Network a little bit above Inception, maybe that's not fair in terms of like high concept, like comparison. And I know comparison is the thief of joy, but for me, like The Social Network was a movie that I saw and it literally like opened my mind to like, oh, you can do tech as a career. Oh, you can just be a normal person and create a great idea. Is maybe one of the most inspirational movies. It also shows like the drama of like doing business with friends. I've read in real life that Eduardo Saverin and Mark Zuckerberg were not as close, and like the relationship is dialed up a little bit, mostly from Eduardo, because Eduardo gave this account to a guy who wrote a book about his experience. And I think that was called The Social Network, and then obviously it got adapted. But for a dramatization, and like we love the story either way, right? Even if it's been manufactured, that movie for me like hit so hard. Also, I think Justin Timberlake, his character as Sean Parker, is probably one of his most iconic. Jesse Eisenberg for sure. I think it's a mistake he's not coming back for The Social Reckoning, but I really like Jeremy Strong. I think he'll be great. My point more so though is that like the movie that lasted the test of time out of those, because The King's Speech is great, but nobody's like, maybe there's people, but like I don't think people are like, dude, like The King's Speech, like watch this scene that I fucking loved. Like it's just like when you watch it, it's a good movie and you understand why it got awards. But like with The Social Network, it's a quotable film. It's referenced in pop culture. How many times have you heard somebody say like, "Oh, I love the." It's like the filmmaker mindset. Drop the filmmaker mindset. It's the drop the. It was like a everyone knew it. And anyways, it's one of those movies that people imitate, they love, they want to like try and recreate. Also for me, it was so close to home. Like I've spent a lot of time in Palo Alto, Cupertino, the South Bay area. I'm no stranger to it. It was like, wow, like this movie happened, like other than the Massachusetts part, most of this like shit happened in my backyard. It's just crazy to think. And even in the past, like I've driven through Palo Alto, I've seen Zuck's house, I fucking have seen Steve Jobs' house. Like sometimes you just fucking cruise around like, hey, apparently this is it, right? And it's just like when you're so close to that, you can kind of brush the greatness or like whatever, just be around that aura. You do feel like inspired. And I think that movie captured that same thing and put that out into the world. So, Social Network, obviously, that's not what I was here to talk about. Kind of diverted from talking about the King's Speech, but fuck it. Movie's incredible. Also, Dumbledore plays a fucking dad in King's Speech, the King George V, and it's just interesting seeing him in something else because he is such a good actor. He's also in Sleepy Hollow, I believe. Couple things I've seen him in lately, but I digress. My point more so, because I'm getting distracted here, is that in 2010, you had such a premium lineup of films, and what was the best choice? At the time, they thought King's Speech. In retrospect, I think they might have made a different decision. I think they might have said, hey, like, you know what, The Social Network was a truly great film, or Inception was more worthy of that Best Picture Oscar. But once again, like Oscars also like being in contention alone is probably the best thing because like people like, yeah, hey, look, if I got nominated for an Oscar and didn't win, I just be, hey, like, dude, check the list. Like, at least you're on it. And that's more of a humble point of view, in my opinion, than being like, well, I'm so bitter I didn't get it. To be recognized, I think is like, there's that quote, people work for money but die for recognition. I think being recognized on that scale alone would be probably enough for most people to be pretty satisfied in life, feel a little happiness from it. To lose multiple times or like it's like Better Call Saul. I saw that fucking Bob Odenkirk never won an Emmy. He was like nominated every single fucking year for the show. Never got one, but you know what? He's probably in the best television show ever made. So like it doesn't matter. Just being in the fucking, conversation. I think that's really the most important thing these days anyways is being a part of the conversation. Do people know who you are? Do they care? Do they want to watch your shit? Do they even care about your shit? I think just being like, in the mix. So if you're a filmmaker out there thinking like it's all or nothing, like it's not. Like you could just try and put shit out and try and be a part of the conversation. So anyways, interesting little fucking commentary I had on that 2010s film era, particularly that year. And it's funny because sometimes we do watch a movie and it makes us like trigger like, oh, let's watch all the movies made in 2010 that were up against each other. This all started when we watched that fucking movie, Not Something's Gotta Give. Oh fuck, it's that Jack Nicholson movie. I can't think of it. We fucking Christine hates it. And I have to say I do agree that the movie's not that great. It's slipping my mind. I've talked about it before. What is that fucking movie called? Won an Oscar. It'll come to me. Anyways, sometimes we watch a movie and it triggers like an entire like we're gonna watch all the movies from that year. And then we're gonna kind of compare. I actually really want to watch Network. God, who is it? I think it's Sidney Lumet. No, can't remember, but we'll watch it. And we'll compare movies from that fucking year. Anyways, I digress. The next movie I watched, which I was really, really fucking like terrified to watch this movie for years because my mom told me it was scary. said she watched it as a kid and said, "You can't watch it. It's the scariest movie ever fucking made." So, like, I've had this, like, legitimate fear of watching this movie for probably 20 years. And, like, it's a quintessential American horror film, and I put it off because I literally have been too frightened. Frightened of the imagery, frightened of the satanic undertones, and I finally watched it. I faced my fucking fears, and I watched The Exorcist. The Exorcist, 1973, director William Friedkin, writer William Peter Blatty, based on Blady's novel, and director of photography Owen Roizman. Fucking really well shot. It could have been shot like, yesterday. You wouldn't even know the difference. Starring Ellen Burstyn as Chris McNeil, Linda Blair as Reagan McNeil, Jason Miller as Father Damien Karras, Max von Sydow as Father Lancaster Marin, and Lee J. Cobb as Lieutenant Kinderman. The old Kinderman there. Anyways, so look, I had a legitimate fear of watching this movie. I also have to add a little context. One, my mom told me it was scary as a kid, and she's just like completely scared of horror movies. Two, I went to Catholic school. Like literally 7th through 8th grade, like the middle school part of my Catholic school, was low key like a brainwashing thing about like how Satan's out to fucking get you. Like every kid in my class, like our parents were calling up the teacher who's teaching, like the theology teacher. I'll give her name, Miss Marsh, and being like, yo, like you gotta fucking stop. Like our kids like can't sleep at night. I wasn't the only one. I told my mom, like, man, like she showed us clips from this movie and like she's showing us about like how like Satanists like murder people. At the time, I didn't think like I thought it was crazy, but I was also like accepting because I'm like, well, I gotta watch this. This is school, you know? And then, like retrospect, I'm thinking like, dude, you're showing us like R-rated documentaries and like clips of The Exorcist to scare the fuck out of us while we make Jesus fucking like, corn husk dolls and shit. It's all good, but it was just like it was just nuts in retrospect. But anyways, myself and all my friends were like, yo, this is like some heavy shit. And then like The Exorcist kind of became this like taboo thing that we're just not gonna watch it. Like we'll watch other stuff and like, but any devil shit, it just like scared the fuck out of me. I think most people, right? And I think like even I've read about the history of The Exorcist, like it's the fucking scariest movie ever made, and like people were fainting when they saw it. I get that. After watching it, I understand. In 1973, it must have just been fucking terrifying. Uh, a little bit about the movie too, not just the scariest thing, because I'll give you some more history. If you've seen it, you've seen it, right? I'm not going to give you every beat of The Exorcist, but I'll give you two things. One, this movie apparently when it came out, the studios only put it in like 20 theaters. They thought it's going to be a shit box movie. Made 10 million in the first week. They're like, put it in everywhere, and it ended up becoming the like highest grossing movie ever until like some big fucking comic book movie came in and took its place, right? But initially, Warner Brothers was like, this is going to be just like some shitty horror movie that we kind of make a couple bucks off of, right? Blew up, cultural phenomenon. Uh, but not only that, I feel like the movie took over like culture because this movie did get the stigma of being the scariest movie of all time for a long time. The makeup was so scary. The actual like disturbingness of it was disturbing. And there was some scenes like there was like these dream sequences and then like a few times where they just put like one frame of this like devilish face and it just like the way they edited it, that was to me the most haunting thing. There's like a scene with an Ouija board where like I thought it was so corny that they had the Ouija board in here, but I read it was like the first time somebody had done the Ouija board. And even going into the movie, a lot of people were like, hey, like it's gonna be either like you're gonna love it or you're gonna be like, I've kind of seen this done somewhere else. Everybody's ripped it off for sure. But they just seen where the girls trying to play with the Ouija board with her mom and like the Ouija board like handle like flies right at her hands. It's fucking like visually frightening. And it's so subtle. The thing about The Exorcist was that it was a slow burn, very subtle, and it didn't rush any of the moments. It took like the first hour and 10 minutes of the movie was just set up, which I actually respect because I was like, you know what? Like it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. I actually ended up becoming a big fan of The Exorcist. Nothing like I thought it was going to be. Had a nice fucking slow burn. And by the time it actually got into like the little girl Reagan being possessed and like actually having this demon inside of her, like you just like you knew so much about the family and the life, and you were kind of like, okay, like yeah, you believe it. And I think that's part of what makes it so scary. Also, a little context, like in the movie, the mom, Chris McNeil, is shooting a movie. Her daughter, Reagan McNeil, is living at home. Technically not their house. They're in DC, Georgetown, shooting the movie. And like she's a famous actress. And while she's doing the movie, they're renting this home. And at some point, she ends up playing with this Ouija board while mom's at work. And she said she meets this entity. Like she doesn't know it's real, but she tells the mom, oh, Captain Howdy. And that's when they go to play with the Ouija board. And like the Ouija board doesn't want the mom to play. And she's just like, okay, like, how'd you do that? And she's like, oh, I didn't do anything. That was Captain Howdy, being all innocent. As time goes on, the girl gets a little bit more possessed. And it just becomes like, the mom starts getting worried. She's like, my daughter was like this sweet little girl and she's starting to act weird. And then you kind of see the subplot with the father Karras character. He's putting his mom in a home and like having his own battle with faith. And that's kind of like the main character, in my opinion. Like low key, he ends up having a big arc towards the end where he ends up like kind of coming back to his faith to help defeat this demon. But yeah, I didn't expect it to be about like an actress doing work and then ending up in like a rental house that ends up having like some sort of possession over her daughter. Just to do like that's not what no one ever told me that about The Exorcist. All I really knew about The Exorcist was little girl gets possessed in a bedroom. And like when they start going into these possession themes or excuse me, scenes, and you start seeing like the actual like visually frightening scenes, for the time, like if I was in 1973, I would have been like fucking lock the doors at night, hold the cross in my fucking hands because like it was that disturbing and scary. I think even today, like the scenes that were scary, but like I think it's just the idea of possession and somebody actually having a demon and like let alone somebody you love, like the daughter. It's very, very fucking scary. Uh, whether you believe in that or not, I think that this movie probably like, they also didn't make it like particularly about like Catholicism or religion. I think the Catholic priests are the biggest thing. But also here's something else I forgot to mention. During the movie, the daughter starts going like crazy, right? And they're like, we can't do anything. She's acting different, saying vulgar shit. She tries to like, stab herself with a fucking crucifix and this and that. And like, she goes to the hospital and they're testing her and they run every fucking diagnostic. They're like, there's nothing wrong with her. And then they finally tell her, like, do you think like maybe she's like possessed or something? And she's like, are you fucking kidding? You think my daughter's possessed? I thought she was going crazy. And she finally seeks out like Catholic priests to do an exorcism. And even the Catholic priests are like, yo, like, we can't just go and say like we need to do an exorcism. This isn't normal. And like low key, like it looks bad for the church to like promote this type of shit. And she's like, I don't fucking care. And like it kind of shows you like how the movie, like the priests come in to do it because they're the people that are capable of doing so. They're not even necessarily like convinced that it's even a religious issue. Even the lady, like they ask her at the hospital, are you religious? She goes, not really. And like at one point too, I'll add this detail. The daughter is found with like a crucifix under her pillow and like nobody knows how it got there because like the mom's like, she's not religious. She's like, who put this here? And it's like, they never explain it. It never comes back. But I think like maybe that kind of shows that this was like a true battle between like Satan and like, whatever I'd say God, but it's really like, the priests and stuff. And anyways, a lot of weird things happen in the movie. I don't want to ruin it because if you haven't seen it, like for me, like I was like, I'm glad nobody's ruined the movie for me. I knew a few things about it, but I was pleasantly surprised. But yes, it didn't overtly make it like a movie about like, oh, the Catholic Church or like, I've watched some of the more modern like exorcism movies and it's always like the guys from the Vatican who's doing the, fucking exorcism. And it's like very like on the nose versus this, which was understated the whole way through. It was understated. Anyways, The Exorcist, 1973, terrifying, well shot, well made, well directed. To be honest, I almost regret not watching it sooner because it is a movie that like I know it gets referenced so much and I know it's such a big part of like the horror community. I'm fucking late to it. I'll be the first to admit it, but like it was almost kind of cool because it's like I got to see this like incredible timeless film. How long has it been? 40 or 50 fucking years, easily 50 years after it was made. And that's kind of cool. I got to watch an absolute classic for the first time and experience it in 2026 and still get moved and still feel all the things people felt. It also ends kind of on a down note, a little bit more not ambiguous. It's conclusive for sure. There's two things I like about the ending. One, it's not like a happy ending. There is like a character arc for Father Karras, but like things happen to him that aren't great. And then, it's conclusive. There's kind of this like peace that comes with this guy. He finally gets back to God. And then, I'll ruin it a little. If you don't want it to be ruined, don't listen. But Father Karras passes at the end. Same with Father Marin. He's like the guy who kind of like, he's the OG priest they bring in to help the Father Karras guy. But Father Karras is like not believing. He doesn't want to be a part of like the church anymore. He's like, I'm going to stop being a father. And he ends up, taking the demon into himself at the end and he gets tossed down a staircase and dies. But like he came back to Christ. He gets absolution and last rites in the last, moments of his life because his friend sees him dead on the ground, like dying on the ground. He grabs him and he's like, hey, like last rites, absolution, you're good. But then at the end, like with the Chris McNeil lady, like the daughter Reagan goes back to normal, but they like finish the movie or whatever. And they're like, hey, like we're getting the fuck out of here. And they kind of just leave it all behind. The daughter doesn't remember being possessed. And she's like, you know what? Like for her, it just seemed like very easy for her to walk away despite all the bad shit that happened to her and her daughter. She was unaffected in the long run other than having to go through the experience. And I'm not even gonna say it's not fair, but it's like, there's such sacrifice to get them out of that, and, like, they were willing to do it, but they just left it ambiguous. They never tell you who the demon really is. They never tell you whether it was, like, actually a religious thing or not. Um, I guess it's in the title, The Exorcism, so it is a legit exorcism. Here's my thing with the exorcism that they do is at the end, like, the exorcism, like, the guy says, "Take me." He's, like, grabbing the girl, and it just transfers into his body, and I'm like, "Well, how would they, like" maybe this is a dumb question, but, like, how would they, like, otherwise get rid of this demon if you shot the little girl, God forbid, and killed her? Would that spirit just die with her? You know? Or did it need to be transferred to this guy? Because actually, that has kinda answered my own question. He takes this entity into him, and it throws him out the window and down, like, a fucking, like, 150 fucking step staircase, and he breaks his neck, and he dies, he's dead. But I guess that kinda says it. The demon dies with him. He takes him instead, you know? Anyways, incredible fucking movie. I'll definitely watch again. Honestly, even talking about it, I'm kinda like, I think round 2. I said that about a lot of movies lately, but round 2 would not be bad on The Exorcist. Truly fucking great movie. Anyways, like I said, I've been writing, been getting to fucking work, doing a lot of shit, watching a lot of movies, trying to stay active, trying to stay fucking healthy. And yeah, just trying to focus. I'm gonna read one of my affirmations from the filmmaker mindset. I'm not really here to grift, but if you want it, go check it out on Amazon. It's on Gumroad as well. There's a digital version. But like I said, I always post these on fucking line. Honestly, if you're tuning in, just get them for free here. I'll just read them to you and we can fucking, you know, share them. I'm looking for a good one. Hold on, guys. Maybe I've said that one before, but I do love it. Hold on 1 second. Stick with me, people. I'm looking. Hold on 1 second. I want to read a good one. Not that the others aren't good, but I need to be able to riff on this shit. I like this one. I take risk in my work. Safe doesn't stand out. Authenticity over perfection every time. Well, if you're going to take a risk and, it's your work, I guess that kind of goes with authenticity over perfection. Actually, authenticity over, let me say 2 things. Okay. I take risk in my work. Safe doesn't stand out. Yeah. I fucking never worry about the right way or how I'm going to do it, because that shit just, like, gets in your way. Like, if you just go out and, like, I always say this, filmmaking, like, it feels illegal when I'm doing it. Not in like it's wrong, but it's just like I always kind of have this vibe, like, oh, like, I'm out here doing it. It's the risk of going out and making something. I think it's just inherent. You feel it because you're like, I'm taking a risk with, like, my time and my resources, and, like, God, I hope this thing works. Even when I went and shot Encounter, for example, I was like, I'm out in public again and, like, kind of just shooting, and I'm kind of piecing it together, and it's like, will the juice be worth the squeeze? And you know what? It almost always is. And I fucking thought, Encounter, for what it's worth, is a standout short film. It's also, like, kind of a precursor to, like, what's going to come next. Like, I feel like as a filmmaker, I've grown so much, and, like, how do you grow? It's by taking the risk in your work. And I've stood out because of not being fucking safe. Like, safe, yeah, you can do it, but, like, we just go out and we truly are creators. We go out and make something. Not just myself, but everybody who's involved in the filmmaking process with me. And yeah, we just don't fucking hold back. We actually go for it. We try to, like, hit a home run. And I think, like, risk is, like, I'm not, like, I've talked about this before. Like, if you've never invested in stocks or you've never bought a business, like, the risk is high. You're like, oh, you're risk adverse. I'm risk prone because I've had so much aversion in the past, but then I've been exposed so much to risk that now, like, a risk that used to feel like a huge risk in the past doesn't feel so risky anymore. It feels more like, okay, like, well, I'm risk prone because I've been exposed to so much of it. My aversion is, like, declined. Authenticity over perfection every time. Okay, like, that kind of goes into the whole theme of the episode. Perfection could drive you fucking crazy. Like I said, like, the fashion's never finished, the work is never finished, art gets abandoned. Yeah, but, like, perfection is doing what you do in that time to try and make it as good as possible and try and just get it done. You don't want to, like, be constrained by that. And if you are doing something that you truthfully believe is good and trying to tell your truth, the genuine aspect of that quote, then yeah, just fucking create something that you feel is authentic to you and that's real. And I think that you'll have success. Selling the truth is really hard if you don't believe in it and believe what you're doing. And if you believe in it and you understand what you're doing and you have, like, a collective goal to make something great, then, like, that's all it is. Like, there's no way on the other end of that. I always tell myself this too when I'm making something, like, there's no way it could come out that bad. It can't be that bad. You know what I mean? And it never is. But like, I think like, even like, I don't care if you're Steven Spielberg, even Steven Spielberg, he made that disclosure day at some point during it. Maybe he realized it wasn't great, but like, maybe he's even in his mind is like, it can't come out too bad. You know, maybe it'll come out great. It's just like, you don't know. Maybe you kind of know when you're making something, but like, really, that's like why most people never start, is because like, well, what if? And like, a lot of like creating and filmmaking is going in with, well, fuck what if, because there is always going to be a what if. We got to just do it now and like kind of roll the dice. So if I could leave you with anything, I guess it's that kind of like, just stay true to yourself and fucking create. Just keep creating. Go out there and fucking make something. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and fucking edit this pod together and get it out and fucking go enjoy the rest of the day and just think about the next thing. I'm going to go back on my script and fucking revise and just keep working. Now that I'm in like a fucking, also like, just to close this thing, now that I'm in like a routine, I can work. I am feeling better despite this little like tail end of this cold. Just back to work. I'm really excited to make this next movie. I'm telling you guys, it's gonna be fun. And like, when we're getting closer to production, I'll reveal more details about the plot. I'm sorry to be mysterious. I know it's probably just fucking like, this guy is fucking jerk off. He's fucking teasing us. But it's coming soon. All right, guys. I think that's about all I got. I'm Devin Thomas. This has been another I'm Devin Thomas, and this has been another episode of Unscripted. I'll talk to you all next week. Peace, guys.